Our big focus remains the terrible train tragedy in Odisha's Balasore district, and at least 288 people have died and around 900 people have been injured in the horrific three-train collision in the Balasore district of Odisha. Now remember, the Prime Minister visited the spot and he took stock of the situation, and he also went to the hospital where all the injured were rushed after the incident. The Prime Minister very significantly has said that those guilty or those behind the incident will be punished. He has also issued strict guidelines for speedy investigation. The focus right now is to restore the tracks after rescue operations have been completed. Remember, rescue operations went on for almost 28 hours. NDRF teams, state rescue teams, all were on the spot. And finally, after the completion of rescue operations, the focus now is to restore all the tracks for operations to continue. Here's a report on how the day unfolded, with various top politicians visiting the spot and also making sure that all the medical assistance is provided to those injured.
Shocking images laying bare the extent of one of India's deadliest train disasters. An accident involving 3 trains on Friday night in Odisha's Balasore district that left over 250 people dead and 900 people injured.
जब गाड़ी पलटी हुआ तब हमारा नींद तोड़ गया, ठीक है। उस टाइम देखा हमारा जो बोगी में जितना आदमी था, रिजर्वेशन बोले तो जनरल का जैसा है, तो 10-15 आदमी मेरा बदन के ऊपर पूरा आके गिर गया। जब ट्रेन का बोगी से बाहर आया तब देखा किसी का पैर नहीं है, किसी का हाथ नहीं है, ऐसा है, किसी का थोबरा बिगड़ गया है।
ऐसे लगा कि कुछ टकराया, इतना जोर से आवाज किया, कुछ पता नहीं लगा, उसमें चोट लग गया सबको।
मध्य ছেলেপেলে ছিল, সবাই তো পড়ে গিয়েছিল। পড়ে যাওয়ার পর আমরা কি করলাম, আমাদের কাছে 5000 টাকা ছিল, দুটো মোবাইল ছিল, সব পড়ে গিয়েছে, ঠিক আছে, সব পড়ে গিয়েছে, আমরা কিচ্ছু পাইনি, ঠিক আছে, প্যান্ট জামা কিচ্ছু ছিল না, বাচ্চাটা আমারও কিচ্ছু ছিল না, ঠিক আছে, তো আমরা এরকম অবস্থায় চলে এসেছি।
Such was the extent of the disaster that rescue work took the whole night and more, and involved much agony and heartbreak. But the big yet unanswered question, what happened? Accounts by people at the spot suggest the Shalimar Chennai Coromandel Express, travelling at a high speed, switched tracks for some reason, collided with a stationary goods train on a second railway line and derailed. A third train, the Bengaluru-Havna Superfast Express, passing through the spot on a third railway track, hit the derailed coaches of the Coromandel Express. Did a human or mechanical error lead to this massive accident? Railway sources told NDTV it's difficult to point to a human error at this point. The cause of the derailment is not known. It does not look like sabotage at this point. Railway sources said there could only be 3 reasons: mechanical or human error or sabotage. It's also possible that driver misjudgment may have occurred. All angles will be probed, railway sources said. By Saturday evening, top politicians including Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Railways Minister Ashwini Vaishnav and the Odisha and Bengal Chief Ministers had visited the accident site and hospitals. But questions over what happened still remain.
हर प्रकार की जांच के निर्देश दिए गए हैं और जो भी दोषी पाया जाएगा उसको सख्त से सख्त सजा हो, उसे बख्शा नहीं जाएगा। मैं उड़ीसा सरकार का भी, यहाँ के प्रशासन के सभी अधिकारियों का, जिन्होंने जिस तरह से इस परिस्थिति में अपने पास जो भी संसाधन थे लोगों की मदद करने का प्रयास किया।
वो ऐसा है एंटी कोलिजन डिवाइस कि एक लाइन में 2 ट्रेन आ जाएगा तो उसमें रुक जाएगा। अगर कोई ट्रेन सामने पड़ा है तो रुक जाएगा। अगर कोई कुछ भी हो सकता है, एंटी कोलिजन डिवाइस डाइवर्स हो जाएगा तो उसको अलर्ट करेगा। लेकिन मैं जब रेल मिनिस्टर इधर में है तो मैं यही कहने चाहूंगा, आप देख लीजिए इसमें एंटी कल्यूशन डिवाइस नहीं लगाया, जितना तक मेरे का जानकारी है। अगर एंटी कल्यूशन डिवाइस लगाता था तो कोई इंसिडेंट नहीं होता।
Railway safety should always be given the first preference. The people have been taken to hospitals here in Balasore, also in Cuttack, so that they recover as fast as possible.
The Railway Minister announced compensation of 10 lakh rupees for the families of those who have died, 2 lakh rupees for those seriously injured, and 50,000 rupees for those who sustained minor injuries in the accident. Prime Minister Modi also announced a separate compensation package. Multiple trains were cancelled or diverted because of the accident. With Saurabh Gupta, Aniruddha Tripathi, Manish Kumar, Habib Ali, Bureau Report, NDTV.
So many unanswered questions remain on operational lapses and also how did the train actually got derailed. But we'll come to that later in the show because our big focus is also the human cost of the terrible tragedy. Hundreds of men, women and children have lost their lives and their families torn apart.
India's biggest rail tragedy in more than over 2 decades has left the country in shock.
Unfortunately, dead bodies being pulled out from the mangled coaches as the chances of finding survivors inside decrease. But you can see unfortunate, unbelievable scenes. One of the worst railway accidents in recent history as dead bodies are pulled out of the coaches here on the tracks. So,
from going on holiday to travelling in search of work, hundreds of different stories of hundreds of passengers, none of them now around to tell their tale. The ones left behind are paralysed in shock.
যখন আমাকে মানে গাড়িতে তুলে তখন আমার একটু মাথাটা মানে জ্বালা পোড়া করছিল, তখন আমি তাকিয়ে চারিদিকে দেখি সো চারিদিকে লোকজন ছিটিয়ে পড়ে রয়েছে। তখন আমি হতাশা হয়ে গেছি, আমার মুখ দেওয়ার কথা বের হয়েছে না। কি আমার ব্যাগে আমার কাগজপত্রগুলো আছে, ওই জন্য চিন্তা হচ্ছিল এখন যদি আমাকে কেরালা থেকে ফোন যদি করে কি না তোমাকে এত টাকা জরিমানা করা হবে, তাহলে তো স্যার আমি गरीबेर ছেলে। एक्सीडेंट हो गया है तो हम तो बोला जे रात में फ़ोन किया था तो फ़ोन नहीं रिसीव किया था, सुबह में फ़ोन किया था, सुबह फ़ोन रिसीव किया था, सुबह हम फ़ोन किया था तो फ़ोन तो भाई ने रिसीव किया था, दूसरा आदमी फ़ोन रिसीव किया,
बोला बालासर अस्पताल।
हाँ बालासोर हॉस्पिटल में है।
तब आप यहाँ आए?
हाँ अब हम आया।
Many migrant workers on board Coromandel Express going for work to Chennai recount the horrific incident.
गाड़ी हो मालगाड़ी में इतना स्पीड में यानी ठोका है तो उसके पलटी जा रही है। पलटी होने के बाद हम लोग कैसे कष्ट से निकले हैं, उससे कुछ निकाल तो नहीं पाए पर जान निकाल के आ गए।
आप निकले अपने से?
हाँ निकले तो अपने से, कैसे कैसे करके अपने से निकले, बाहर आए, देखे हाल। उस टाइम हम लोग को चक्कर आ गया देख के ऐसा मुसीबत में, तो हम लोग थोड़ा बेखबर हो गए। उस टाइम वहाँ पे आदमी पहुँचा, वो लोग हम लोग को कहीं पे बैठाया, सुलाया, होश आया तो इधर लेके आए।
As the frantic search for relatives continues, hundreds wait endlessly outside hospitals.
All of them are, going through, they are in a great deal of shock, and somewhere it will take some time to overcome the trauma. With cameraman Habib Ali in Bhadrak, this is Manish Kumar for NDTV.
What a horrific incident there, and the victims, innocent men, women and children. But what actually transpired before the accident took place? Many versions have now surfaced. Accounts by people at the spot suggest that the Shalimar Coromandel Express, travelling at high speed, switched tracks for some reason and collided with a stationary goods train on the second line and derailed. And then a third lane, the Bengaluru superfast train, passing through the spot on the third track, hit the derailed coaches of the Coromandel Express. But now the official preliminary report is out and that tells a different story. Megha tries to break it down for us.
Since yesterday, various different versions have been floating around. Various of them that are unauthorized. Many of them that are given out by experts from their own understanding of the situation. So today the Railway Ministry decided on clarifying the entire situation, and sources in the ministry have shared some information on the basis of the preliminary investigation that they have carried out. Now we've created a small animation to explain to you exactly what happened. There are 3 tracks. On the central track, which is the up line, is the Coromandel Express. There you see the Howrah Express moving towards Howrah onto the right hand side of the Coromandel Express. The Coromandel Express derails here and hits a goods train which is stationary onto the left hand side of Coromandel Express on a separate track. Sits right there. The engine and the first few bogies of Coromandel Express sits on the top of that stationary goods train, while the rear part of Coromandel Express actually hits the passing other train, which is the Howrah Express. The rear 2 bogies of the Howrah Express get impacted by the Coromandel Express's derailed bogies, and this is how 3 different trains got impacted, while the derailment happened only of the Coromandel Express, but the involvement of 2 other trains happened in such a manner that it seemed that the entire area, got into one horrific accident. And well, that's exactly what happened at the end of it, because one derailment ensured that the engines and the top few bogies of the Coromandel Express hit a stationary good train. On the other hand, the rear few bogies of the Coromandel Express hit the Howrah Express's last 2 bogies, thereby, perhaps increasing the scale of this entire accident, and now it's of massive proportions.
Right, so the cause of the accident will be clear after the probe report. The final probe report is out. Remember, a probe is underway, and the Prime Minister has said that there has to be speedy investigation into the accident. We'll continue to track the latest on this story. Time for a short break now. Be right back. The big story we've been tracking all day on NDTV, the terrible train tragedy in Odisha's Balasore district. Remember, the death toll has increased to 288 and over 900 people are injured. Currently, the information we're getting from sources is that around 350 people are still in hospital. That number is likely to change as we go ahead. But remember, the fact is that hundreds of men and women and children have lost their lives and many families torn apart. Now, what are the key focus areas for the government right now? Remember, the key focus right now is to make sure that medical assistance and aid is given to those injured. Many injured have been rushed to hospitals already and they are being treated there. Several of them are critically ill. Now, the focus is to provide medical assistance to them and also to make sure that the families of those injured are actually identified, because remember, the government also has to hand over the bodies of the deceased to their families. So that is going to be a huge task for the government, given the death toll, given the numbers that are coming in. Over 200 people have died, so that will be a mammoth task for the government as well, and also to focus on the probe, because it is still uncertain as to what really caused the accident. Various versions are coming in, but how did the Coromandel Express actually got derailed and went to another track, to its adjacent track? That is really the big question that the government has to, in a sense, ascertain the cause, because remember, the Prime Minister also today has said that the investigation has to take place as soon as possible. A speedy probe has been ordered by the Prime Minister. In fact, today the Prime Minister was also briefed by railway officials. When he was at the spot there, he took stock of the situation. The Prime Minister was accompanied by the Minister of Railways, Ashwini Vaishnaw. In fact, also Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik was also there at the spot, the Prime Minister taking stock of the situation there. And in fact, also remember that when we talk about the investigation, the government has come out with a preliminary report. And the preliminary report has suggested that the Coromandel Express first got, in a sense, it went to the adjacent track, and finally it actually, the derailed bogies of the Coromandel Express got hit by the Yashwantpur Express, and that is why this accident took place. A very rare accident, given the fact that 3 trains were involved. But the big focus right now is to make sure that medical assistance is provided to all those injured, and also the restoration of tracks. That is going to be another important task, because remember, almost 150 trains have been affected. 150 trains that go along that particular route, they've been affected, particularly trains going to and from Bangalore, Chennai, Kolkata. They've been affected, and now as we speak, the restoration exercise is underway. The railways are undertaking that mammoth exercise to restore tracks so that operations can continue. But what do we actually stand to learn from this absolutely terrible tragedy? Now, does this incident mean that our railways infrastructure need to be strengthened? What about the Kavach or the anti-collusion systems that are in place? What are the systems that are actually available? What is the technology that is actually available for our government to make sure that such a terrible tragedy does not happen in the future? Vasudha Venugopal actually tries to tell us what are the measures that are available to prevent such train collisions.
And Indian Railways is truly the lifeline of this country. And when there is no denying that rail accidents have only come down in the past few years, what happened in Balasore actually shows that a lot more needs to be done when it comes to the safety of passengers. So I was looking at some RTI findings from last year, and a major reason for train accidents seems to be derailments, and these happen due to many reasons, including technical glitches, human error, overused tracks, and most importantly, outdated signaling equipment. This is something that the opposition has also talked about. But there are broad measures that we could be taking, that the government could be initiating, the Indian Railways could be putting in place to at least prevent such collisions in future, or at least ensure that even if derailments happen, there is no loss of life. First is to start with improving the signaling technology. Now, the Railway Ministry has already ordered a probe into what might have caused this crash. And while this is going to take some time, there are primary observations that there are multiple versions to how this accident could have happened. And of course, we will get to know only when the probe report comes out. Now, was it a technical glitch, or was it a human error, or was it a signaling failure? This is something that we need to wait for. But the most important question here is, don't we need better technologies to prevent collisions? And there is this Kavach that the government is already talking about. Now, the Railway Ministry has been in the process of installing an anti-collision system. It's called Kavach across the country. Now, what does a Kavach do? It basically alerts the driver when a train jumps a signal, which is, probably the most important cause of train collisions. Now, railway officials are telling us that it is yet to be installed on this line. The system can alert the train driver. It can also apply brakes automatically, and when it is activated, and basically tell you stop all trains within 5 kilometers radius, and also take care of the adjacent tracks. So it reduces the burden on drivers and also helps them identify the risks that is ahead of them. When Ashwini Vaishnav, the railway minister, said that there is a possibility of just one error in 10,000 years, it got a lot of Indians excited, and that is why this technology is being awaited. Now, this is already in a trial phase in some parts of southern India, including Bidar and Namapalli and Ligampalli, which is next to Hyderabad. It is going to take some time to come to other parts of the country. We are told that early next year is when we can expect the same technology in Delhi, Howrah and Delhi, Mumbai rail routes. But with what happened in Balasore yesterday, we are also being told that there could be some sort of fast tracking of this project. And we also need these systems faster on high density routes to ensure safer operations. The third more important thing here is also, does our aging infrastructure need more attention? Now, when we look at our infrastructure in railways, it is a very large network, and there are faults in tracks, there are maintenance issues, and we need better implementation of advanced technologies, and we need to replace outdated carriages. Somebody, a higher official in railways, was also telling me that the trunk lines in some of those stations like Chennai and Howrah also need doubling, and some sort of lack of maintenance is visible, which needs to be addressed. The eastern part of the country, of course, has always witnessed more and more railway accidents. If you see, Bengal, according to NCRB data, also accounts for the second highest number of train accidents, and the country's deadliest rail accident also happened in Bihar in 1981, when an overcrowded train fell from a bridge into the Bagmati river and we lost 800 lives. If you look at our recent past, last year in Alipurdwar there was a similar collision and we lost about 9 lives. So this is an important factor of concern. And lastly, we also need to invest more in R&D. There are countries in the West that use positive train control and automatic train protection, which actually help drivers make these decisions and reduce the possibility of human error. Before I wind up, let me also tell you that the budget allocated to Indian Railways was the highest last year, with Nirmala Sitharaman, Finance Minister, allocating over 2.75 lakh crore to Indian Railways, which is why more of these technologies need to be put in place faster and non-utilization of funds needs to be addressed.
So hundreds of those lives in Odisha could have been saved had those anti-collision systems been in place. All of us at NDTV hope that those injured reach their loved ones safely, and our prayers are with the families of the victims. That's all the news that we have on this bulletin. Goodbye and keep watching.